I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Commission of May 11th, 2022. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. Please note the Planning Commission will be allowing testimony on agenda items by video conferencing for those individuals who have pre-registered. If you parked in the parking lot across the street to the north, the gate is open and no parking coupons are needed. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, commissioners, and the staff, cell phones may not be used in this chamber during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. The Planning Commission action on all items on today's agenda is a recommendation to the City Council. The first item of business is the approval of the amended minutes of the regular meeting held March 30th, 2022.
So moved. Campbell.
Second? All right. Shelley?
Ball.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Edens.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you. The next item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held April 27th, 2022.
So moved. Campbell.
Second, Rodenberg.
Shelley?
Ball.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Edens.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Minutes approved 7-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Shelley to read all the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Shelley, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, I first want to note that item 1.1, change of zone 15021A, is being removed from the consent agenda for separate public hearing.
Okay.
So the first item for consent is miscellaneous 1.2, miscellaneous 22004, to review the proposed determination that the Coyote Finke redevelopment area be declared blighted and substandard as defined in the Nebraska Community Development Law on property generally located north of O Street between North 66th and North 70th Street along the Mopac Trail. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this item?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information learned while visiting this site to be disclosed?
I don't see any.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this consent agenda item?
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this item? No, it's going to be after this. So is there anyone who wishes to speak on miscellaneous 22004? Okay.
I would move that we approve consent agenda item miscellaneous 22004.
Second, Core.
Shelley?
Ball.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Edens.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. There are no requests for deferral, so we will now proceed to public hearing. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members or included as part of the record, please provide that information to the clerk for distribution. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes, then you will have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the commission votes to defer action or continue the hearing. Shelley, please call the first public hearing item.
The first item is 1.1, change of zone 15021A to amend the Victory Park PUD plan unit development to increase allowable building height from 2 stories to 3 stories, up to 50 feet for multifamily structures, and adjust the lot layout for further plotting with associated waivers on property generally located at 600 South 70th Street. Are there any expert communications to be disclosed on this application?
No.
Are there any expert communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of this site to be disclosed?
No. George?
Thank you, George Wesselhoff, Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street, Lincoln, Nebraska. So where we're at generally, we're south of O Street. This is South 70th Street, Victory.
Second, George.
Oh, sorry.
There it is.
Going too fast.
And is there any way you can speak just a little louder, George?
Sure, sorry.
Nope, that's fine, thank you.
So we're at Victory Park Drive in South 70th. St. Elizabeth Hospital is to the west. And I'll just briefly show the existing zoning, which I'll just clarify or confirm that the existing underlying zoning is not changing. This was established as part of the original PUD.
The camera just went out. There we go.
Okay. So there's existing O3, B2, and R4 zoning that exists today, which will not change as part of this proposal. And so the request is for an amendment to the PUD to allow for repurposing of the VA hospital and to allow the previously planned multifamily residential to have taller building heights along the north side of the property. There's also changes proposed to allow for further replatting of the property. So north is at the top. In terms of the existing buildings today, we have the former VA hospital, the new VA clinic, and then the apartments, the 70 units of apartments that were constructed, the Vash, or Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, that were constructed there. The other buildings shown on this plan have not been built yet. It includes the apartments along the north side, townhomes on the east, another 70 units of apartments to the southeast of the Vash project, and then potential commercial elsewhere in the PUD. So again, the R4 zoning is not changing. That exists along the north and east sides of the PUD and includes, again, townhomes on the east side along the former VA hospital building, and then apartment buildings on the north side. The original PUD approved waivers, including pedestrian connection waivers, block length waivers. It did approve height limitation waivers for the VA clinic, the 70 units of apartments that have been built, and for the adjacent interior lots from 35 feet to 45 feet with the original approval for those lots. The lots on the north side were limited to 2 stories, or R4 limitation of 35 feet. The new requested waivers include 6 different waivers. The first has to do with parking. They are requesting a waiver to the parking requirements to allow the parking to be included for the total site, or that is the conditional approval. They're requesting parking within 300 feet, and the condition is to allow for the whole site to be counted as far as the parking requirement. They're allowing or requesting for allowance for waivers from front and side setbacks in the various of the districts. They're not requesting any waivers to the perimeter or rear yard setbacks. And then they are requesting a waiver of design standards specifically for the parking lots that are internal to the site to waive landscaping for internal parking lots, again, not for the perimeter of the site. Respective of these lots here, which are on the north side, this is the new VA clinic here. new AVI clinic here and then the Vash housing there. The original PUD, as I stated earlier, limited these to 2 stories. The current request is to amend the PUD for these lots to allow height limit of 50 feet so they can have 3-story structures. The request is justifiable because there will still be a 100-foot setback. That's what was shown on the original PUD as approved, a 100-foot setback facing the lots that are along Wedgewood Drive, and that's not changing. So they're not changing the setback, they're not changing the location, it's just a request to change the height. The other thing I would note is that there was a recent ordinance change that if you have a PUD, you're allowed to have up to 55 feet in height for multifamily structures. So in other words, if this PUD were brand new today, they could by right, without any waiver, go up to 55 feet with a multifamily structure. The reason they need this amendment is because the current plan specifically identifies a 2-story limitation for height. With that, I can answer any questions you may have.
That's pretty unusual, isn't it, to have like a number of stories articulated in a PUD versus a specific height?
It's uncommon, yes.
Okay. And is there any presumption that that was because of conversations with the neighbors on the north side?
That was the intent, as I understand it, as opposed to interior, where they were allowed the higher 45-foot height.
On the inside?
On the inside, yes.
Okay. Okay. Tracy, I saw you first.
Can you point out again where the Vash housing is? Is that lot 1?
Yes, that's the Vash
Okay,
housing on lot
and
1.
then the buildings that you're showing on your map right there, are those the old garages? So I don't know if you want to call it to the north of lot 1. Nope, the other way.
Yeah, so this would be north at the top. There
Yeah.
are some existing buildings here that were part of the VA.
Nope, not those, to the north.
Those are the new buildings.
Nope, that's the clinic, so right to your right.
Like the northeast?
Yeah, right along the board, so there used to be some garages, so right up here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there are some existing accessory structures closer to the old VA hospital. I'm not aware of any structures where the new multifamily buildings.
Okay, so those that you just touched, those are supposed to be the new multifamily buildings?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that that was the new buildings and not the garages that used to be there. Okay. So right now, I want to make sure that I heard you correctly. Right now, their limit is 2 stories or 45 feet.
No, the R4 limitation is 35 feet.
35, okay.
But the current PUD specifically identifies 2 stories, so they could not do a 3-story structure or exceed 35 feet.
Dick?
This may be more a question for the applicant, George, but are you aware of any landscaping that's being done in that 100-foot setback?
Yes, there will be landscaping required. That was required on the original submittal. It's per the design standards for multifamily. And so it would consist of a mixture of deciduous, coniferous, and shrubs in terms of vegetation that would be between the apartment buildings and the residential home property line.
Okay, thank you.
And you commented that the 100-foot setback was part of the rationale that for the planning or department's support of this waiver because of the distance between the new buildings and the housing behind, correct?
Correct. The minimum R4 setback is 30 feet, so they would exceed by more than 3 times the minimum. It is true there is a contour height elevation difference where the site of the apartments are higher than the homes to the north, but yes, there's a significant setback.
Okay. there was some comment in letters of opposition that were received that talked about some removal of trees and that was in that area between, I assumed it was between what would be the new apartment buildings and the housing on the north, but was that in a different location?
I am not sure specifically what trees were removed. I
Okay.
know the original PUD specified the design standards for multifamily for screening, so I'm not aware of a requirement that certain trees had to be preserved.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions for George right now?
George, how many stories is the Vash housing?
They were limited to 45 feet, and in checking with building and safety, they came under that. The building permit, I think, indicated 37, but in any case, they did not exceed the 45 limit.
And then, do you happen to know how many units are occupied in the Vash housing?
I don't know the occupancy level. The developer or applicant might know.
Yeah, we'll save that for that. I was just, from where the parking was, like, say today, how many people were parked there?
Any other questions for George? Thank you.
Thank you.
Testimony from the applicant.
Good afternoon. Zach Reinhardt, Burlington Capital, 1004 Farnham Street, Suite 400, Omaha, Nebraska, 68102. We are the developers of the housing in question. I might just throw our some drawings up here and talk a little bit about what it is that we're doing and why we're here. So to your question, I'll start right off the bat with the occupancy at Vash is 100%. We typically, our occupancy at the Vash housing is full. The only vacancy we have is the turnover, whatever time it takes to get a unit switched from one occupant to another. That is an affordable project that is supported by Vash vouchers for, we're actually very proud to be able to say formerly homeless veterans because that's 70 units of housing that we've built for those veterans to support them. So what we're talking about here, as George mentioned, is increasing the height of that, the building on the back. And what's currently programmed to be on that site is 84 units of affordable housing for seniors. There will be a veteran preference because we're on the VA campus. So a portion of those units would likely be leased to senior veterans, but the units will be occupied by seniors, and I believe that's 55 or 60 plus as far as what that age group is for the seniors. The hospital is also programmed currently to be affordable housing. Again, we've understood the city's push for affordable housing. The city's identified a need for affordable housing as a priority, and Burlington Capital is excited to be a part of that. Certainly here to answer any questions you guys might have.
Would it be, would it be an appropriate statement to say that the people in the Vash housing and also in these new low-income apartments, most of them would not have vehicles?
So yeah, that's a fair statement. Many of, maybe I don't know if I would say most, but I would say many.
Okay.
So I drove through the Vash parking lot this morning before I came down here, and of the 70 units that we have occupied there, I might have seen 30 vehicles in the parking lot. So yeah, there's quite a few of our residents that don't own their own vehicles. And honestly,
How many lot spots are in that parking lot then?
oh, I think we're close to 1-to-1. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but we're very close to, I would say, probably 60 at least stalls in that parking lot.
Okay.
And one of the things we like about this campus, and one of the reasons we believe this campus is a great location for what we've built and what we're proposing to build, is its access to transit, access to schools, healthcare, jobs. We think that it's a very well-situated location to sort of magnify or amplify the benefits that come with building low-income housing or affordable housing.
So would you say your request to, for this height waiver was driven by a desire to create additional housing.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
A desire to create more housing in this location, given the current construction environment, increasing the number of units that we're able to build, makes the project more feasible for us, and also helps the city address their clear desire for more affordable housing.
To date, have you had any communication with the neighborhood surrounding this area?
Not recently. We've received some feedback from the neighborhood through our civil engineer, who's also here if you have any more technical questions. But I think there was two emails that I saw.
Okay. Dick?
Will these apartments have balconies on the north side?
I don't expect that they'll have balconies on the north side. Yeah, I don't expect that we're gonna have balconies on this project. Personally, I tend to lean more towards interior square footage in our Midwestern climate because you can use it all the time. So there may be, we haven't progressed design completely. I certainly wouldn't rule out balconies, but I'd be surprised to see balconies on this project. I would expect it to be similar in design to what we see at Vash, which doesn't have any balconies in that project.
Gloria.
Yeah, thank you.
Will all these units, because you're marketing to seniors and vets, will they all be accessible?
So they will not all be fully accessible from the start. So it's an important distinction, I suppose. There will be accessible units that are accessible from the start, but 100% of them, I don't believe so.
So the 3-story buildings will have an elevator?
They will, yep.
And then to get to the additional parking, because you're pushing them further away, will there be an accessible route?
Yeah, so we'll develop an accessible route, and we will also have, can have an easement on the existing Vash housing parking, which is just on the other side of the building, to allow for handicap parking nearer to the property.
How many bedrooms are in the Vash housing?
The Vash housing are all 1-bedroom, 1-bath units.
And this new, like the new apartments, will they be 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom?
Yeah, so we're targeting 2-bedroom units in this.
And it's all affordable housing,
That's
so
correct.
no market rate?
That's right. Oh, I should take that back, actually. We have a small amount of market rate from a mixed-use perspective. I think there's less than 10% that are market rate. That was more a mechanism of an agreement with NIFA, who's providing tax credits on this project. But it's a small, I would argue it's primarily affordable.
Christy?
How many stories did you say was in the Vash housing?
If I remember correctly, there are 3 stories in the Vash housing.
3 stories at 37 feet tall. Okay. And is that accessible?
It does have an elevator, and we do have accessible units in the building.
Okay. And then the designs for the new units, it'll have the capability of adding elevators? Is that what I
The new building
understood
will-
you to say?
The new building will have elevators built in.
Oh, okay.
From the jump, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Tracy?
I noticed in your application letter that you asked for a 20-foot front yard setback, and now we're at 18. I just wanted to clarify which one you truly want.
Yeah, I think that our target was 20. I'd have to look at the drawing here. Yeah, 20 is our intention on the front yard.
You do have a dimension that says 18. Where is that?
Yeah, we can get that corrected. 20 feet would be the target.
It's more for the staff, for our staff clarification, so this goes forward properly. And then I also want to clarify, so you told us that the Vash is 3 stories and staff is telling us 2 stories, so
I'm nearly certain it's 3. I could pull up a photo of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I took photos, I was looking at that.
I mean, if it's 37, that would be more like 3, but
Actually, with the heights that they do on floors now, that could have a load roof line to give it 3 at 37, but
Versus the gabled roof they currently have.
Right.
Looks, I mean, it has 3 windows stacked. Those are from this morning.
Yeah, it's 3 stories.
3, okay.
We do have a flat roof for most of that roof, and we're targeting a pitched roof on.
So then, really kind of what I want to know is, this is going to be pretty much the same height then as what's currently there for Vash?
So one of the reasons that we're asking for an increase in height is to allow us the room to design the building. Right now, I don't know that we can fit a 3-story building in a 35-foot height. Obviously, our goal is not to build the tallest building we can build. That's just not cost effective today. So our target would be to build our building at 3 floors. And because we don't have design complete, and finalized, we need some flexibility in that height because of the grade change and some of the other issues. We want to make sure that we don't have to come back to you guys, quite frankly.
Sure. I'm not sure if you're going to know this. I probably should have asked staff. And this is kind of on another part of the project, but originally Aging Partners was supposed to move into and move kind of their headquarters into the VA hospital building. Is that still
Yes.
the plan?
They're working on it as we speak.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I think I heard something about you're still going to turn some of the hospital into residential as well.
That's right.
Okay,
Yep.
so both the Aging Partners and some residential.
That's
so
right.
kind of
So
mixed use.
Yeah, that's right. Aging Partners is occupying what was sort of the old clinic space on the backside of the hospital. And I say old, but it's really the newest part of the building. And the housing, the residential portion, will occupy the historic portion of the hospital.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
There was some conversation about, and I asked this question of staff, about whether trees were removed in that area. Can you speak to that at all? What happened there?
Yeah, so I can speak not much actually. I joined the firm in 2017, so after a lot of this work had started. I don't know that any trees were removed. I can tell you that generally we don't remove trees unless those trees need to be removed in order for us to build the building. And since we haven't actually touched that portion back there yet, I would be surprised if trees had actually been removed. Now, I can't say for certain that they haven't. There may have been some dead trees or other issues that could have been addressed. But our practice is not to remove trees unless they're in the way of construction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you
very much. Okay, at this time, we will take any testimony in support of this application. Is there any neutral testimony, and then testimony in opposition? Come on up. Yeah, right there. And then just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is John McManaman. I live at 231 Wedgewood Drive. I did have a few emails that I had sent along with the neighbors. I have copies of 2 of them. I had 2 more that I got from the neighbors, if I can hand them to...
Actually, hand them to Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'll start out with some questions that weren't really answered. The existing Vash building, you called it, is 3 stories, and the roof is not flat, so it is probably taller than 37. The ground is at a slope, so basically, even if that building's only 37 feet tall, it is really probably closer to 90 or 100 feet from where our homes are located on Wedgewood Drive. And in the wintertime, it does block a lot of sunshine, and they did probably tear out about 50 pines, cottonwoods, shrubbery, other trees. The landscaping has been changed substantially with the water drainage affected. A lot of weeds, dandelions. It's a different property manager, so they haven't been taking care of it as well as they have been. A lot of noise. Their windows are open, a lot of smokers. Let's see, privacy is a factor, and it'll be even more so within a building even closer to our fence line. I don't really see how they're gonna fit a parking lot and another building and still give us that 100 feet. 35 is way more than enough height for them to build a building, and 2 stories was their plan. And I think if you decide to give them 50, they're gonna end up trying to do 4 or 5, or not 5, but 4 stories, and even 3 is too much. 2 is a lot, but I know I missed the deadline to fight for that back in 2015. I know a lot of neighbors would like to be here, but during the day it's hard for them to get here and fight. Let's see. A lot of the buildings to the south, I believe, are in the historic registry and could be used. I don't know why they're not using those. Let's see. Basically, a lot of the neighbors that I had spoken to, I don't know if they had communication with you, had voiced their opinion about peaceful enjoyment of our homes and not deviating from any existing plans because it is affecting our property valuations, privacy for sure. The landscaping, you know, it's going to be really hard even if they do decide to plant these trees. That's still not going to give us the privacy that we deserve and expect from our backyard standpoint. It's going to bring in a lot more people to this already small-sized campus. Let's see. Oh, I guess you were asking about the existing garages. I think that was lot 9 on that diagram. They're still there, and those are still very close. I can still read the graffiti that's on the back of those and easily see in people's windows, and I'm sure they can see in mine too, which causes us to have window treatments and worry about my children when they're swimming in the backyard and the neighbors' children and animals. You know, they bark at anything that they hear and see back there. And I know you want factual evidence, but I'm basically here to just protect whatever little hope I have left for the 35 height.
Were you a part of the, you know, when this application first came through, do you remember the conversations with the neighborhood at that point?
To me, I feel like it's really hidden a lot, like they don't want people to know. And I talked to a lot of my neighbors across the street, and they didn't really get any information on that. But the original meetings were at the VA, and it was mainly veterans coming there, and they were concerned about the park-like atmosphere being preserved and the healthcare clinics being preserved, so they didn't have to drive to Omaha or Council Bluffs for their care. And basically, we didn't have a lot of chance to voice our opinion then, and I had just recently moved to the neighborhood a few years prior, and a lot of my neighbors were unaware of the process, and I feel like they could do a lot better job notifying neighbors. And I'm kind of disappointed that my neighbors that said they were going to be here today didn't even show up, but I know some of them made calls or emails, but I feel like it's secretive for a reason, just kind of like the TIF, the tax increment funding. Like, they're obviously making money. I don't know if it's a state or local, city or federal level, but I feel like sometimes it shouldn't all be about the money, and it should be about preserving a local residential neighborhood rather than trying to pack as many people in there as you can, and there's other room for that to happen. And the original one, I believe, was a 5 or 6 story in the southeast corner, and those neighbors complained enough to have them push it over to my corner, which maybe they had more people to fight at the meetings here, which I was unaware of at the time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Yeah, please review those other emails too.
Absolutely. Other testimony in opposition? Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, do you have a packet of information? You stated that we can pick up a packet of information from the clerk.
Yep, you have the agenda, full agenda.
I got the agenda, but I want the packet of information.
Okay, we would have to I have it here, so I would have to, I can have you look at it now, and then would need it back. But
Well, I'd like to have a couple of the exhibits, like the maps. I'd like to have elevation view along 70th Street to show you that there is, my name's Ed Snabel. I live on South Westwood Drive. 50 years ago, I lived on the north side, so I've lived on both sides of the property. When I moved out there, I could not see this hospital because of the trees. So many, many trees have been removed, most of them because they died. And you're talking about the white garages. If you know the VA property, you know where the nurses' quarters are and the doctors' quarters? You know what I'm talking about, those buildings?
Yes, I do know.
The white garages are right behind those. So they're just it'd be to the northeast, or that'd be the north, to the southeast of the back housing. And they are still there. And I'm also a volunteer at the clinic out there. And I have a question for the developer is, the veterans would like to have a flag on the flagpole. That's one of the biggest things that I get from the veterans coming in using the hospital. They want to know, this is our property, where's our flag? So before they do anything else, they need to take that flagpole down, rebuild the base of it, and put the flag back up.
Where is the flagpole now? Is it in front of?
It's right in front of the old
Of the old
VA
hospital. Okay.
There's 3 pine trees that you can't quite see the base unless you go around to the.
Right, the circle?
If you know where the roundabout is on the map, it sits just to the south of the roundabout. And that's one of the tallest flagpoles in Lincoln. It's been taken down because the base is crumbling. And like I said, and you asked about, yes, I was here 8 years ago when they started this whole project. So I've gone through the whole thing. First of all, when they put the back housing in, I said, where do you want to put it? It's not going to work. I said, it floods back in there. There's a reservoir in that corner. I said, you need to put it behind the nurses' quarter. We had our next meeting. Guess where it was? This is where I told them to put it. Now, they don't need, those are 3-story buildings. That's back housing. They don't need it. I want to know, the question is all money. They want more money. Is what they want. And if you look at the elevation of the property, at that side of the building, the property has the elevation like this. So you're going to put a 3 or 4 building right on top of the fence line. And I used to live in a house on this side, so I know right out the back door you have an incline like this. So that building's going to stick up above the trees on that side of the property. Now, that's basically what I have.
No.
Unless you have some questions.
Questions? We appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your service.
I would like to have a copy of that.
You can go ahead and take that.
Huh?
You can go ahead and take that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other testimony in opposition? Okay.
Emails that I printed, I forgot to give you. I think you got one of them, but.
Okay.
Thank you. If there's no more testimony in opposition, there is one. Oh, excellent. Sir, can you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
Hope he's not dropping.
There you go.
Sir, you can go ahead now.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sorry. I wasn't told your name, so I wasn't able to address you.
I'm sorry, it wouldn't let me enter my name. My name is Scott Merchant. I live on Wedgewood Drive. I can attest to what the gentleman just said previously. The way the elevation there is, there's absolutely no need to have an increase in the height of the buildings there. It's just the way it sits. We already have noise reverberation. The construction last time was a dusty mess that flowed over the entire neighborhood. In addition to that, we really haven't had any communication or given any idea of what's going to go on as far as the landscaping barrier. Right now, I look out my bedroom window and there's nothing but a grass field there. We were told at one point there was proposed landscaping to go in there to kind of hide or shield us from the from the buildings. We haven't seen anything. There's been absolutely no communication as far as what's going on. And now here we find out there's another building with an proposed increase in height, which is going to do nothing but deteriorate the I guess peaceful enjoyment of our neighborhood at this point. So I would say for the residents, it's been a frustration on our part that there's just been no communication about what's anticipated to take place, what's been proposed, or what we can expect moving forward. So I guess I'd just like to voice my opposition to any proposed changes at this point based on how things have been handled previously in the past.
For your testimony, can you state your address for the record, please?
My address is 240 Wedgewood Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Merchant. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there any other testimony in opposition? Okay, staff questions. George, is there some confusion with regard to the front yard setback reductions between the R4 versus the O3 lots?
Yes, if I may clarify, the 18 feet was unintentionally in reference to a parking setback, not a building setback. So if the commission, as part of your motion, could reflect a 20-foot as requested by the applicant. Thank you.
Okay.
George, can you review the landscaping requirements that they will be required to do?
Sure, I will do that. I will just first briefly address the other trees that were removed that were there before. Presumably were done for site preparation. There are some detention cells that are proposed. These are the apartment buildings, the residential homes here at Wedgewood. So there are some detention facilities and earthwork prep that for the project, and so that's why the trees were removed. But I can speak to the landscaping. That is a design standard, as I mentioned. It's the design standards for multifamily dwellings approved by PUD. Specifically, it states that the screen shall cover at least 50% of the surface area of a vertical plane extending along the property line from 6 feet to 15 feet above the adjacent ground elevation of multiple dwelling structures, garages, maintenance buildings. And that screen has to be, of course, located between the buildings and the property line. So going back to the screening. Again, it will consist of a mixture of deciduous, coniferous, and shrubs that will extend along the perimeter of the property.
Now, can you, I want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly and kind of get it on the waiver and explain for these folks, or get it on the record. So when they plant these trees, they don't have to be 6 feet right away. They have to have a mature height of 6 feet to 15 feet at a minimum.
That's my understanding. The mature height has to equate or ultimately achieve this standard, yes.
And this could be trees, it could be a fence to start off with, but usually developers are going to wait to do this towards the end of the project. Is that correct?
This would be something reviewed at the time of building permit. So our landscape reviewer and planning would review the landscape plan as part of the building permit when they're ready to proceed with that. There is, I would mention just briefly, after the PUD approval, they will need to final plat because the apartments are in an outlot presently. So there's another step before they get to the building permit.
What I'm trying to get at is one of the last things that the developer does in the project is probably going to be installing the landscaping. So unfortunately for the neighbors, that screening won't be there until the project is nearly done.
Correct, it would be toward the completion or when the building permit is being reviewed and.
So it won't necessarily help during the construction phase.
I can't speak exactly, but generally speaking, yes, it'd be more towards the building project when they have the building permit and completion.
Go ahead, Dick.
George, can you look at that key that's along there, that's to the top of your, on what you've got on the screen? And, no, pull down. Yeah, does it tell species on that at all?
Yes, I have another sheet, actually. If I could find it. I believe Colorado spruce is one of the coniferous.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a deciduous tree, American hope hornbeam.
Mm-hmm.
And then also a vernal witch hazel for the shrubs.
Okay. And is the hornbeam the only species in the deciduous?
Deciduous. They also list a frontier elm on the general plan here.
Okay.
But it looks like for the apartments that it's the, actually I should stand corrected, for the apartment area it's the frontier elm, but they list the other species as well that's on the landscaping palette.
The frontier elm will get about 35 foot in its full maturity.
Okay.
And to answer your question, Tracy, it is at the end because you have to have a finished grade before the landscaping can go in and the grass can go in. So it would be towards the end of the project.
Thank you.
Other questions for George?
Do we have any history on why it was limited to a two-story?
I think originally there was a concern about just the proximity with the neighbors as far as the height and then the 100-foot setback. That is a significant rear yard setback. Those two items, I believe, were incorporated to address the perimeter concerns with the neighbors.
And the 100-foot setback, clarified, that's to the property line or to the structures?
That would be from the back side of the structures to the neighboring property lines.
To the property line of the neighbors. Okay, thank you.
And that's the height difference runs 14 to 15 feet from the 100-foot setback to the back of these buildings.
Yeah, that's a plus. Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, it's significantly taller.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions for George? Thank you.
Thank you.
Applicant rebuttal.
Thank you. Do I need to state my name again?
No.
Okay, great. So wanted to just kind of, I took some notes here. One of the questions was about the historic buildings. Those historic buildings are in place, will stay in place. We're working with nonprofits and other organizations that may be able to use those buildings for office space. So those buildings, we don't intend to tear them down. They will stay, and our goal is to get them used. They don't really work for multifamily or for housing based on the way they're built. And they're historically, they've been office, so we'd like to keep some office use there. One of the gentlemen referenced, you know, if we ask for 3 stories, we're going to go for 4 or 5. We're not. We can't afford to build 4 or 5. We're looking at a 3-story building. That's what makes the project feasible. These affordable housing projects are not done to enrich us as developers. I can tell you from the way that these work, there's a lot of other ways that we could make money as developers that are a lot easier than building affordable housing. So our goal is to utilize the campus the way that we told the VA we would, which is first we built the Vash housing. We told them we'd build 70 units of housing for homeless veterans, and we did it. We told them we'd bring a clinic to the campus so that veterans don't have to drive to other cities to get their care, and we did that. Continuing to build affordable housing on the site furthers, I believe, the goals of our organization. I believe the VA would echo that as well, and I think that it's beneficial for the city. When it comes to the flag on the flagpole, I will certainly discuss this with our property management team, the folks that are on site every day managing this property. Getting a flag on the flagpole I don't think is going to be a problem from our perspective. We certainly appreciate the service of the veterans and would be happy to see a flag there. And yeah, Mr. Campbell's comment was absolutely right. The landscaping would come at the end of the project. We need finished grade. We also don't want to put in a bunch of landscaping that would potentially get damaged by equipment. So we do intend, as the PUD requires, to put in the screening landscape at the back. We have to do that, and certainly wouldn't skirt that. If there's any other questions that you guys have, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
I have a couple. So I'm a little unclear. Is the flagpole still there, or was it torn down?
The flagpole is still standing.
Okay. Okay. I have kind of what may seem like an unusual request, but can you, and I know that you really have no control over this, but can you maybe designate a smoking area for the construction workers so that that's far enough away from the residential side?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Just to kind of help minimize that for the neighbors.
Yeah, I'm making a note of that right now. I understand. I don't particularly like it when my neighbor is outside in his backyard smoking and my windows are open. I certainly can appreciate that. So I'd be happy to have a designated smoking area that's away from the single-family residences behind us.
Any other questions? Do you have anything else to share with us?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much.
I would move that we close the public hearing. Campbell?
Second, Core.
Shelley?
Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Edens? Joy?
Yes.
Rodenberg?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Public hearing closed, 7-0.
I would like to move approval of this application, but, and I'm gonna struggle with this. Change condition of approval number 2 to 20 feet instead of 18 feet.
Second, Campbell.
Discussion.
You want to go first?
Sure. I would like to make another proposal, although I know that it's unusual, but to maybe alleviate some concerns, and I think the developer would be okay with it. But in addition to putting that 50-foot height, just put in the 3-story limit, just to kind of alleviate some concerns on the neighbor standpoint. But I'm interested in getting my fellow commissioners' feedback on that.
So to be clear, instead of saying 50.
No, I think we can still put the 50 feet, but just include,
Stories.
yeah.
Is it an amendment?
Well, I'd like to get your feedback first. I don't know.
I will second it so we can discuss it.
Um,
I would
I
base,
agree that if we approve this, we should limit it to 3 stories so that there's no doubt that they're not gonna, under that 50-foot guideline, come up with a 4th story.
yeah, and it's measured, if they put a pitched roof on it, it's measured to that halfway point. So, putting the 3 stories in there, I don't think hurts a thing. So I would support the amendment.
should I go ahead and make that amendment now, or?
How do you want us to do this, Tim?
Sorry.
Yeah, it felt like.
I just want to make clear that what we are amending here is the conditions that are included in the staff report, essentially, because this is just a recommendation to the city council that ultimately make that decision. But I think what's on the, just to go back and review, I guess, a little bit, I think what's on the table at the moment is a motion to approve with the changing the condition of the front yard setback from 18 to 20 feet. What I hear is that there is an intention to make a second motion to amend to add a condition that in the 50 feet is the maximum height limit, but under no circumstances shall there be more than 3 stories as part of this, as part of the building. And what is not clear to me, because I don't have the staff report in front of me, is if that 50-foot limit is specific to a given lot or something shown on the site plan. I don't have that in front of me.
Yes,
It's part of the R4.
12, 13, and 14.
So I would simply then suggest there be, in addition to the 50-foot height limit, that the R4 area be limited to no more than 3 stories. And if you want to make that motion, Commissioner Core, that would be fine.
You're asking me a lot. I mean, I'm glad you understand what I'm saying, but okay, let's try this.
Would it be an amendment to the original motion?
That's what I'm hearing, yeah. So voting wise, we'll take up, this motion would be taken up, seconded, then taken up, vote on that specific 3-story limitation, and then go back to the main motion, just so we're all clear on where we're headed here.
So I would like to amend the motion on the floor and add to the conditions of approval, after the limit to 50 feet, add or 3 stories. I don't know if or is the right word there, but
I would say and in under no circumstances greater than more than 3 stories.
what he said.
Second.
Okay, is there any other discussion about that particular amendment? If not, I think we can go ahead and vote on that, and then we'll continue with the discussion.
Okay,
Shelley?
Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Edens? Joy?
Yes.
Rodenberg?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 7-0.
Now we get the other voice.
David Carey, Director of the Planning Department. I just want to make sure, I believe we need a vote on the first motion to amend, which is the 18 to 20 feet change.
Okay.
Is that, or did you?
I think that'll come. I think that was made as as part of the original main motion, David. So I think we'll take that up as
That's
part
correct.
of this one.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Okay, I have comment on the.
Yeah, let's
original.
continue to discuss this overall project.
First of all, I'm pleased to see more low-income housing coming into our community, and especially for veterans that are maybe not as fortunate as some of the rest of us financially, and to give them a nice home for their later years and their service to our country. But the landscaping that is proposed will sufficiently screen in time the residential area behind it. And I think more projects like this in our community are a blessing.
And I agree with Dick, fellow Commissioner Dick, on that. With the height changes and the canopy of the landscaping, and that 100-foot setback with our 3-story amendment, I will be supporting this.
Other comments? Gloria?
I do struggle with this one because I feel that the higher they go, the more they're overlooking the backyards, as the residents said. I am also a huge proponent of accessible, affordable housing, if I have not said that a lot. So I struggle with this one. The trees will take a very long time to grow. They'll be beautiful when they're there. And this is a change because nobody expected the Veterans Hospital to go away. So they bought their house thinking that it was going to stay that pretty park landscape. So I struggle with this one, but I can't turn down affordable, accessible housing.
I agree with Gloria. This one is a struggle because I understand from the neighborhood perspective that this is a big change, this height, and they're going to bear the brunt of this change, and that's unfortunate. But hopefully we're putting in a couple of protections for them so that it, won't keep compounding that. I do want to make just a couple of comments for the applicant in case they have to come back again or make further changes. Please make sure to hold a neighborhood meeting or communicate with those neighbors. It goes a long way when you come in front of here so that they know what's going on. And then I think I heard, if I'm remembering right, a comment about mowing and keeping that in check. If you guys could maybe look at that as well, I would eternally thank you for that. But overall, I think this is a good project and we need the affordable housing, and it's even better that it's for veterans. But the neighborhood does have my sympathy. Oh, Gloria.
Last comment, do fix the flagpole.
Yes, thank you for that.
The,
Rich?
thank you. And this is a recommendation to the city council.
That's correct.
And so, whichever way the vote goes, the applicant or the people that are not in favor of it can apply to the city council within 14 days, correct? And then you will have another hearing and.
No,
Well,
it automatically goes to the city council, so they will have the opportunity
it's
for that,
automatically- okay.
for that discussion at the city council.
And it's generally a month after our meeting.
Okay, so they don't have to file.
Correct. There's
Okay.
no special permit, so it's not final action.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yep. I agree that this project really checks a lot of boxes with regard to infill, with regard to complete neighborhoods, with regard to affordable housing, in particular for a specific population of our community that needs this housing. That being said, there are some concerns with regard to how it affects the neighborhood. I also will echo Commissioner Corr's comments that having outreach with the community and with the neighborhood, we encourage developers to do that more and think that can go a long way to ensuring people really understand what these projects will look like and how it might affect their property and their livelihoods. And frankly, we are moving the ball for this neighborhood in some respects. That 100-foot setback was there, and that 2-story limitation was there, and we are, as this goes forward, we're changing that with some provisions to continue protecting the neighborhoods in some regard with a number of stories limitation. But I will be supporting this application. Shelley?
Ball.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Edens.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. Seeing none, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Campbell?
Second core?
Shelley?
Ball.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Edens.
Yes.
Joy.
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Edgerton.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.